Hey everyone, I was just having a conversation with a woman I've grown to love and admire, and I'm looking forward to spending some time with her. I think she's going to be fabulous. And we are becoming grandparents together with Paul's son. His son is, for those of you that don't know, we haven't had much contact with that part of Paul's family, and we're making contact for the first time in August. Paul's son is now having his first son at the end of July, and we're flying to Ohio to meet everyone. And I was just talking with the grandma, and they were going into some of her birth decisions and what she was going to do regarding that and why. And it made me realize that as women, what we do to each other during the time of our pregnancy, it's almost like it's our own version of Scar Wars, that we somehow have to tell them the worst story or share the worst part of the pregnancy and scare people and tell them how awful it was. And I was very blessed because even though I had a lot of birth stories around me of women that decided to and that had their children, I decided for myself, even myself, I was a horror story birth story. I'm like, I think my mom was in labor for 3 days and I was born breech, and there was a whole bunch of complications, and my entry into this world was a struggle because it was almost like I did not want to come here and do whatever. I don't know, but it was a teasing thing, making work for it. It was very interesting. I never thought about that till now, but my entry into the world was not the best. So my mom has her own personal, and my own entry in the world is a birth horror story. But when I had my boys, I had made this decision to unplug myself from that. And my first son, I had a midwife, and I lived about an hour out of a major city center. And the midwife was situated in the city center, and I was in a remote area where there was no, the nearest hospital was about half an hour away by drive, depending on who's driving. And I decided that I was going to have my son at home. And I remember the struggles there about the birth story, on how there's all this judgment with each other on this. And I realized that time in our life, I don't understand why we've created these situations where we are delegating and separating each other. We all go through that situation, and the decision we make is what helps it make it better for ourselves. And I know that there can be incredible judgment, but like, I was thinking about talking with her. She's made a decision on what to do that, and I'd never made that decision on how I had my children. And I'm like thinking, I'm going, well, you know what? That's the best decision that's right for her and for her baby. That's what she feels is the right thing to do. And instead of judging her on that or treating her badly and having her feel bad about the birth story, because remember the child that she's carrying, how is that helping her in any way create an environment for that child to help make this world a better place? It's not, because you're not, with that judgment, we're not contributing to the health and well-being of that baby. It's creating an environment where the mother is stressed. And I don't know, it's not about acceptance as in acceptance that you have to accept what her choice is, what her choice is for her, but an acceptance of her as a woman and what she's going through. We could support each other on that way, way better. And that's one of the things I was thinking about, how when I was talking to that fellow mother, she's had more children than I have, and bless her heart for having more children. My trial was with two, and that was good for me. And those that have more, my hat's off to you, because I don't know. I'm not sure. I probably could do it if I did it, but I'm very thankful with what I had. And I have a I'm really realizing on how we could build each other up better, that we could treat each other like the warriors that we are, because this is our experience, this is ours. Men can't do that experience. This is something very special for us that we could do, and that we could help each other and raise the vibration as women everywhere in regards to this experience. And I am not belittling that some of us go through some really terrible birth experiences, but I don't know how that helps anyone, unless you're helping them understand how they could not go through that, so that we could raise the vibration of the baby. Because it's hard on everybody. It's hard on everybody. So and that's where, when I go there, I'll be there when I arrive there. She'll already have had the baby. And what I wish for her is the best birth story, not go into it and create it to be the worst. Let it unfold to be what it is for you and what it means for you, but don't create it in your mind to be the worst birth story, even at the get-go, because that just puts more stress on the baby and the whole delivery, and you're at a position right there and then where you're already behind the ball. Like you're not even a good position to win. If you could set you, like, that's one of the things I did with mine. I had no idea what to expect. I really unplugged myself from anything that was negative in regards to that. I just didn't want I didn't want anyone else to dictate my experience, because this was my experience. And I didn't understand why someone else had to dictate it to me. And even with the minuscule amount of understanding that I had, that I could create my own reality, I had like the best birth stories. I really did. I was out in the middle of nowhere. I was an hour away from the city center, and my water broke at 3 o'clock. And it was a fierce breaking, like a really sharp pain. But it wasn't, I didn't die, or it was just a sharp pain. It's if like you burnt yourself, and we've all lived through something like that. And it's just in a place where it doesn't feel, no, pain like that doesn't feel good anywhere. But we've all had pain like that somewhere in our body. So you get this sharp pain, and my contractions, and 5.5 hours later, Roman was born. He was born at home. The midwife had to rush because my contractions started to go faster. It's an expectation that first-time women usually have a longer labor. Why do you have to have that expectation? I didn't have that expectation. I just thought, well, my labor is going to be whatever it's going to be, and it would be really cool if it was short. It would be really cool if it was short. And so all of a sudden, my mom was driving from 3 hours away. She wanted to be there for the birth, because it would be cool to that's the one nice thing about being at home, that you can have a family environment for the birth. And so even though it's interesting, anyway, so my mom and my dad actually were driving up to be there for the birth. And because of the quickness of what happened, they missed it. They arrived afterwards, because the expectation again, well, it's your first birth, so it has to take a long time. There was no expectation for me. I did not buy into that philosophy that it had to be a long time. I just wanted it to be whatever it was. With Morgan, they're about 26 months apart. And so I had to think about that. So then his delivery was completely different than Roman's. Absolutely, there was not anything that was the same. I had him in the hospital. My water didn't break initially. It was a leakage. I didn't realize I was in labor until an hour later, because it happened twice and I didn't understand what happened. Then all of a sudden, my mom said to phone when the contractions were 4 minutes apart. An hour later, they were 4 minutes apart. And I was in hard labor by the time my mom got there. When my mom got there, she was taking care of Roman. And my husband, or the father of the boys, I guess you could call it, my husband at the time, he had to drive me to across town. We were in the northwest, and we had to go to the southwest, and we had to go through a route that just was not good at rush hour traffic. And this was at between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning. And it was Monday. I think it was a Monday morning, actually. And it was just like, oh my gosh, we're here, we're going. And it was just unbelievable. And we drove to the hospital. Luckily, my contractions went down to 8 minutes apart. But as soon as I stepped a foot on the hospital floor of the parking lot parkade, I just, my contractions came down. They had me, I was wheeled in. I couldn't even sit down. I guess I was fully dilated. She couldn't even check. They put me in a birthing room, and that was really different. I walked through that entire pregnancy, like the delivery, and it was just Roman's I was laying down, Morgan's I was standing up and pacing, completely different birth position, location, who was there. It was just like, it was a completely different scenario. And it was 3 hours from start to finish. It started around, the first real contraction was around 7 o'clock. And at 10:10, he was born. And I'm realizing that as women, I just think that we should support each other more. I'm not trying to belittle what happened on your birth story. But if there was a way that we could help, that people don't have to go through that again. Like, is there some way that we can band as women to, I can share my story. This